I think Shedeur Sanders handily won today. We're not going to tiptoe around it. Shedeur outplayed. Shedeur Sanders, 9 of 11, 74 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. Deshaun Watson, 5 of 12, 35 yards, 1 pick, 14.6.
They said last week was a fluke. They said give it a second game and the real Shedeur Sanders would show up. Well, Buffalo showed up, a rain delay showed up, backups and thirds and fours showed up, and Shedeur Sanders showed up too. 9 of 11, 74 yards, a touchdown, and a stat line that had grown men in the comment section deleting their own posts from a week ago. This is the game where the hype met the tape, and the tape didn't blink. Stick around, because by the end of this one, even the people who didn't want to say his name are going to have to say it, and we're going to show you exactly what they said after the final whistle, too. Let's set the scene, because the conditions alone should have been an excuse. Cleveland was sitting under a severe thunderstorm warning before this game even started. First quarter goes off, the skies open up, and the whole stadium gets put on pause for over an hour. That's the kind of delay that kills momentum for anybody. Starters cool off, backups get pulled, rhythm disappears. Guys have to reheat their whole mental checklist after standing around in a locker room wondering when the tarp is finally coming off the field. And when the Browns finally came back out, it wasn't even the frontline unit taking the field with Shedeur. Denzel Boston was basically the lone starter left standing next to him. Everybody else was 2s, 3s, and guys fighting just to make the 53-man roster. So think about what that actually means. He's coming off an hour-long rain delay with a patchwork group around him, no timeouts to feel his way into a rhythm, and this is supposed to be the week the critics get their proof that last week was an accident. Instead, what happens? He comes out and starts moving the offense like nothing changed. Short completions, efficient decisions, getting the ball out on time, no hesitation in the pocket. This is the same story people wanted to pretend was luck 7 days ago, and here it is happening again in a different game with a different supporting cast under worse conditions than anything he dealt with the week before. That's the part that gets buried when people try to spin this. It's easy to explain away one good half. It's a lot harder to explain away two. And what you're about to see is exactly why the "he only did it once" argument was already running out of road before this game even kicked off. By the time the second drive of that half was finished, the conversation in the stands had already started shifting, and it wasn't in the direction some people wanted.
Genuinely asking what does pad level too high means. Well, pad level, that's a good question. Pad level too high means that when you're coming off the football, you want to use your leverage and you want to use your thrust and your ability to stay underneath somebody. When you play too high, you don't have a center of gravity or a strong base, so you get moved off the football. And on the line of scrimmage, what we want to do as offensive lineman or defensive lineman is we either want to have a stalemate, we either want to have a situation where you got guys that are in their gap that is not being moved around.
Hold on right there, because that drive alone tells you almost everything you need to know about how this game actually played out. Look at what actually built that touchdown drive. 11 plays, 65 yards, a defense on the other side that had just forced a stop, and instead of the offense stalling out, they answered right back. That's not accidental. That's a quarterback managing situational football, taking what the coverage gives him and trusting his checkdowns instead of forcing something into a window that isn't there. People love to point at splash plays like they're the only thing that matters. But real evaluators watch what happens on third and medium, what happens after a bad play, what happens when the operation is under pressure. And through that stretch, it was clean from start to finish. Here's something that got almost no attention. Through this entire half, there were no false starts, no procedure penalties, no delay of game. That sounds small until you remember what the loudest critics have spent the better part of a year hammering on. That he can't handle the mental load, that he gets rattled, that the operation isn't there yet. Well, the operation was there. The cadence worked. He was getting defenders to jump offside instead of the other way around, not once, but twice in this game alone. If the argument against him was command of the huddle and command of the line, that argument just took a direct hit on national television in front of thousands watching live. And then there's the mobility piece. When the pocket collapsed, he didn't panic. He climbed, reset his feet, and delivered instead of drifting backward into a sack. That's development. That's not something you fake for one half against Chicago and then can't repeat against Buffalo. That's a trend. And trends are exactly what shut critics up, because a single performance can be dismissed as a hot streak, but back-to-back performances start to look like a pattern nobody wants to admit they missed. Even the pistol formation usage told a story, because every time he lined up a few steps deeper, giving himself a cleaner look at the defense, the operation sped up and the completions followed.
Here's the thing I'm noticing too. What I'm watching is I'm watching all the small stuff. I'm not just watching Shedeur with the big stuff. Because one of the things that they're trying to use against him is the small stuff. The procedures. Well, I just saw him just call somebody out, got him off line of scrimmage with the cadence. I haven't seen no false starts. I haven't seen no procedure penalties. I haven't seen delay of game. I've also seen you not drifting in the pocket when there isn't anything. You're moving up in the pocket and doing exactly what you need to do in order to get the ball out of your hands. Yes, I could give you the splash plays, but I ain't big game hunting every play. Sometimes the best play, drop it down. King Harrison speaks. Two confidence is back. The real Chef Boyardee. Put the twos up for the 2-minute offense. 2 about to go crazy. $2. Let's roll. Sub 21 visual. All 2 has to do is show you ready. It's him versus him, and he looked ready.
So if the process was that clean, why did the story briefly turn ugly? Because of one throw. Let's talk about it honestly. Yes, there was an interception. And yes, for about 30 seconds, the internet acted like the whole afternoon had been erased. But go back and actually watch the play instead of the headline. The pass got tipped at the line of scrimmage before it ever got to the intended target. That's not decision-making. That's not a bad read. That's a football bouncing off a hand it was never supposed to touch and changing direction before the receiver even had a chance to react. Once people slowed it down and looked at the all-22 angle, that's exactly what it showed, a deflection, not a blown assignment and definitely not a quarterback trying to force something into coverage. Here's the part that actually says more about where his head is at than the pick itself. He didn't get stuck on it. He didn't let one tipped ball turn into 3 more mistakes the way it sometimes does with young quarterbacks who spiral after adversity. The very next opportunity, he was still pushing the ball down the field, still trusting his reads, still operating with the same rhythm he had before the interception happened. 9 of 11 on the day with that single deflected pick sitting in there. That's not a bad game with one blemish. That's close to a flawless game with one unlucky bounce that nobody on the field could have controlled. Compare that to what critics usually do with a number like that. If the completion percentage had been mediocre with an easy unforced interception mixed in, that's a real conversation. But an 82% day where the only turnover came off a tipped ball at the line and the response is still to act like the whole performance should be discounted, that's not analysis anymore. That's people looking for a reason to keep the old narrative alive because the new one is inconvenient for whatever storyline they had already written before kickoff.
Looks like Shedeur is running the coach's offense, dink and dunk, but he warmed up now, looking for that deep pass. You know what shows me maturation? See, Shedeur right now look like he's taking what they're giving him. He just look like he's just taking what they're giving him, right? We already on the board. We already got the touchdown. Great special teams play, but we need consistency out of that group because it gave us a bad field position last year. Yup. That's parts of the game that we need. Manage the game too. Manage the game. Wrist up. Let's go. Second drive. Which Pro Football Hall of Famer?
Now put that next to what happened when the other quarterback took the field, because context is where this story really turns. When Deshaun Watson came in for the second half, he wasn't coming in cold against backups the way Shedeur had to earlier in the day. He had the entire starting offensive line, the starting receivers, the full first-team unit around him. And what did that group produce? 5 completions on 12 attempts, 35 yards, a quarterback rating sitting around 14, an interception of his own, and a body language on the sideline that even the broadcast picked up on, visibly uncomfortable, getting audibly booed inside his own stadium in front of his own fans. Now, flip that comparison the other direction, because this is where it gets uncomfortable for the people trying to sell one narrative. Shedeur put up his numbers with a rain-delayed group of backups, 3s and 4s, guys who might not even make the final roster. Watson put up his numbers with the actual starting unit. One quarterback outperformed the other while working with less talent around him and less continuity in the huddle. That's not a small footnote. That's the entire debate in one sentence, and it's exactly the kind of context that gets left out when somebody just glances at a final score. And this is exactly why the phrase "he matched the hype" isn't an exaggeration here. The hype wasn't that he'd look good running with a stacked unit and no pressure. The hype was that he could operate clean, protect the football for the most part, and move an offense down the field regardless of who was lined up around him. That's precisely what happened against Buffalo. 9 of 11, 74 yards, a touchdown, and a level of composure under a rain delay and a patchwork roster that a lot of grown men in this league still struggle with. The performance didn't just meet the expectation people had built up. In a lot of ways, given the circumstances, it exceeded it. And the box score isn't the only place that got noticed.
Buffalo Bills, Cleveland Browns. I thought Shedeur Sanders had a really nice half. The tip pass, a little bit at the line of scrimmage. We'll say the ball was a little bit behind the receiver, got 2 hands on it, but you got to catch it, bringing that in. Other than that, I thought he was sterling today. 9 of 11, 74 yards, 6.7 average, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. He was sacked 1 time. I don't even think that was a sack. It was maybe a sack for maybe a yard or a half a yard loss. 87.1 rating, but his rating would have been through the roof if it wasn't for that. I take a look at Rocket Sanders, 12 carries, 31 yards, 2.6, but I thought he ran hard. Isaiah Bond had an end around. Devon Booth had a run. Shador ran 1 time for 2 yards, but there was a crazy situation where I think Shedeur Sanders got hit in the face. Nobody called it, and he ran for at least 12 or 13 yards to pick up a first down. Didn't have anything for that. We watch right now. It's halftime, 14-7. It is a severe thunderstorm warning in effect till 4:15 p.m. So there is some more inclement weather coming, so that might be something to watch for. And I'm still watching to see if Deshaun Watson is going to play in the third quarter, and I think he is going to play in the third quarter a little bit.
So here's the reality check nobody wants to sit with. This wasn't a hot take. This was the box score. Let's lay the full picture out one more time because numbers settle arguments better than opinions do. Kyle Allen went 10 of 12 for 128 yards and a touchdown. Shane Buechele went 5 of 10 for a touchdown with 0 interceptions. Then you get to the 2 Browns quarterbacks. Shedeur Sanders, 9 of 11, 74 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 deflected interception. Deshaun Watson, 5 of 12, 35 yards, 1 interception, a rating sitting in the low teens. Combine those 2 Browns quarterback ratings together, and it barely edges past 50. That's the state of the room right now, and it's not Shedeur dragging that number down. This is why the "he only did it once" talking point doesn't survive contact with a second game. 2 different opponents, 2 different situations, 2 different supporting casts. Same result, an efficient, composed, mistake-avoiding performance that moved the football and put points on the board. That's not variance. That's a body of work. And a body of work is exactly what critics need to see before they'll admit they were wrong. Because 1 game can be an outlier, but 2 straight games starts building a resume that's a lot harder to argue with.
Shedeur Sanders, 9 of 11, 74 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. Deshaun Watson, 5 of 12, 35 yards, 1 pick, 14.6. Jimmy Kane says, I just watched it again. Man, I'm telling you, the receiver put it up in the air It looked a little behind, but catchable. I think that's the least of our concerns right now, Jimmy. Jimmy, we got some other issues. The issues is they trying to make a decision on Monday. And this decision is very hard to do, man. If you take a look at it and how people gonna break this down.
Now listen to me, because this next part is the analysis that actually moved the room after the final whistle. Once the game ended, the conversation didn't stop at the box score. It went straight into the context nobody wanted to ignore. Analysts broke down exactly who each quarterback had around him on the field. When Watson played, he had the actual first-team offensive line, the starting receivers, the whole front-line unit built to make him look good. When Shedeur went back out there, he was working with the same group of backups he had before the rain delay hit, guys competing just to make the roster, not the guys drawing up the game plan every week in practice. And the post-game breakdown didn't let that slide, because the numbers only make sense once you factor in who was actually blocking for who. The post-game recap also circled back to something that had been building for weeks, this idea of a tracker, a running tally that critics leaned on to justify whatever conclusion they had already decided on before the ball was even snapped. But once the tape from an actual game got laid next to the tracker's version of events, the two didn't match up. A tracker can be spun. A quarterback going 9 of 11 for 74 yards and a touchdown with backups against a quarterback going 5 of 12 for 35 yards with starters. That's not something you can spin your way around, no matter how creative the excuse gets by Monday morning. And that's exactly the tension the postgame shows kept circling back to. How do you explain a starting caliber quarterback playing worse with the actual starters than a competitor played with backups? The honest answer is you can't, not without admitting the performance gap was real. That's the part of the postgame analysis that mattered more than any single stat, the fact that even people who wanted to defend the safer option ran out of ways to do it once the tape from both series got compared side by side.
I think Shador Sanders handily won today. We're not going to tiptoe around it. Shedeur outplayed whoever was at quarterback for the Cleveland Browns. He obviously gave them more juice. He put the team in the end zone, and he was one tip pass away from somebody should have caught it for almost a perfect day. At the end of the day, the operation was better. The pocket presence was better. The completions percentage was better. The aptitude was better. I was watching every single time. I didn't see no timeouts called. The cadence was fine. He got him to jump off sides twice. I'm just saying. So let's cut the crap and let's get to it. When you win the day, you say who won the day and you be definitive about it. Shedeur won the day. Now, the ball is in your court. The ball is in your court. See, we're gonna see how honest you are about it. When I sat on my stage in my studio and I said, listen, I gave Shedeur Sanders a C last game and I gave Deshaun Watson a B. Let's see how many people gonna have the integrity to keep it a stack.
And that's where the post-game verdict finally landed. Out loud, no hedging, no spin. So here's where this leaves things heading into that quarterback decision. One guy went out there under a rain delay with backups around him and delivered the kind of clean, mistake-free football that answers every single question the doubters raised about him last year. The other guy had the full starting unit and still couldn't get out of his own way, and the fans in his own building let him hear it. The post-game breakdown said it plainly. No matter how anybody wants to frame Monday's decision, the tape from this game says Shedeur Sanders won the day, and the numbers back it up from every angle you look at it. If the hype said Shedeur Sanders could match his production even without the ones around him, Buffalo just proved that hype right, and the post-game analysts who watched it up close weren't shy about saying so. Now it's your turn. Do you think this performance locks in Shedeur Sanders as QB1 heading into the regular season, or do you think the Browns still hand this job to Deshaun Watson no matter what the tape says? Drop your answer in the comments, and if you want us breaking down every throw from this one before the next preseason game, smash like and subscribe.